sais, peut-être parce que vous allez avoir envie de discuter, voir au niveau du scénario du concert. Tu sais, c'est sûr que ça reste des projets individuels, mais il y aura peut-être lieu de penser à un scénario là, au niveau de l'ordre, comment on veut que ça se déroule, un titre, ça va nous prendre un titre de concert.
The Electro series is a project that has a lot of importance in Quasar's activities. It's a series that developed over the years. In fact, we're in the 6th edition. We started working on it in 2002. We're in 2016, so close to 15 years. And it developed, but at the same time, the very essence of the series has remained essentially the same. As an interpreter, there are always very privileged moments in the Electro series because we really have time to create, to research, to experiment with the composers, and that's very precious. Especially the fact that it happens over quite a long period of time. We don't rehearse with the composers for months at a time, but there's a lot of time between the workshops and the happenings. So that changes essentially the whole setup, and it's a formula that I'm very attached to. And in fact, it has influenced the rest of our programming and our entire way of working, because at the outset, I wanted to, we judged that given we were working with new technologies, we needed research and creation workshops. It's like the technology that brought us to that. We didn't really know what we were going to do with the computers, the machines, the treatments we have to try, and from there we'll see what musically it's going to lead us. After that, I realized that that particular process, in fact, was applicable to all projects that we were doing. And even if we were working in the context purely acoustic with 4 saxophones, so a more traditional quote-unquote context, in thick quotes, even if we worked in that context, it was as relevant to work based on this method. So it really shaded, after that, whole process. The relationship to sound is different because we're playing a mechanical instrument at the outset, and ourselves alone we control. There's no intermediate other than us. There can be musical propositions, but as far as the sound emission, everything is done physically, mechanically. So we control individually our instruments. Whereas when the electronic kicks in, that's a new component on which we have a degree of control. In fact, we can have a very different degree of control depending on the project. And one has to learn how to play electronic in the same way we learned how to play our instruments, control the strength, the power, the height, the attack. If we work with an electronic component on which we can have a certain influence, we need to understand how that works. So it's not just to say, well, I'm playing just as usual and it'll be that over on top or on the side, or one really has to integrate it in our playing and really learn. My objective is that the composers take risks, that they try out things that perhaps in a different context they would not try. I like it when it opens on paths that we hadn't even foreseen, actually. And it's happened often that in the reference of a workshop, there's a door opens we hadn't imagined and will bring us to develop an entire, sound universe. Now, we expect from the composer they come in with some ideas, with propositions, but I'd be very disappointed, and it's never happened actually, if a composer would come in to the research workshop with a finished partition or a finished project, because that's not at all the spirit. So yes, they come in with some ideas, some concepts, but it's really the idea that it's in the process, it's in the exchange that the project will be built. And it made me realize a long time that what we are developing and what I'm trying to develop is a creation team, a creative team. So if we look at other artistic disciplines, if we're looking at dance or even theater, there are different roles. There's an author, there's like an actor, and of course the idea is not that one will take the role of the other, but remains that there is a teamwork involved, and I find that that is precious. And of course we work in a different context in dance and drama, but we can inspire ourselves from these practices, and I think that it nourishes and it brings a different perspective on our work, and so this notion of creation I really hold on to. In fact, there's time, a lot of time, and we communicate with the composers, but they work pretty well on their side, on their own. And it's surprising to see that we really find what happened in the workshops as a follow-up to the events. Now, it's evolved, and it's refined, and it's set up differently, but we really find the essence, the deep essence of what happened in the workshops. And so that for us, the compositions, it's like we knew them in depth. It's as if we saw the work, we saw the seed being put into the earth, and so when we work to make the project bloom, we understand where it's going and the direction of it. So I think that we can go a lot further in our interpretive work. Since the beginning, we've always chosen composers that had different profiles. Perhaps when we started at the very beginning, it was a little more clear-cut, knowing the people who were more instrumental and people who were really more electronic. Whereas today, we feel a greater hybridization as far as the practices. Remains, though, that there's different profiles, and it's interesting because that brings a different light, a way of approaching that medium, which are instruments and electronics, which is different. It also creates the fact of working in a concentrated working period of 1 week. It creates a certain constraint. Someone takes the plane, people have to free up, everybody has to set up to be available for 1 week in the fall. But it creates an energy because the composers, of course, each have their projects, but they meet each other, they hear others' rehearsals, and they chat in the hallways and whatever. There's all kinds of meetings going on that are not at all orchestrated, very spontaneous, but it creates a synergy. There's both. You could have the bionic instrument, the super instrument, and at the same time an instrument that is sometimes the instrument disappears a bit in this texture, this great electronic texture. So it's not, you need a certain humility. It's not a place where the interpreter really has to put himself forth. Instruments, I also think that I've often asked myself the question with the technology that takes a lot of importance in music, will our traditional instruments become obsolete? Will they disappear because it's no longer that and we're elsewhere? And I think that they will remain, per se. The instruments are not obsolete or not obsolete. It's what we make of them. And in fact, at the outset, the saxophone is an instrument that is melodic, a height instrument that was created to make traditional musical notes. And when electronic music and electroacoustics came in, a lot of research on the sound, like we look at the instrument under that theme, and we develop the palette of the instrument in that way. It remains relevant. The saxophone is a young instrument. The repertory is like right next to you. It's in front of us. And of course, we want to advance it. But it's not so much the instrument that we want to advance as much as, the instrument is our tool. It's like through this particular instrument we express ourselves. But what we're interested in is the music we make with it. And so the instrument is the vehicle and the music is the destination, if you will. That's where we're going. So it's a tool, but I think it's a tool which is very flexible, very versatile. So we don't change instruments. It's a lot of pleasure because it's also a human adventure, and that remains important. It's very precious. There's an entire community, because we've been doing it for a number of years. It gives us a kind of a broadened family, extended family. These are intimate moments that we share with the artists, the composers, the interpreters. So there's a kind of a community created around that, and I would say that that is very precious.